Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. Going to be speaking with Mr. Rick Anderson, President and General Manager, North America at DarioHealth. He's joining us on the program to talk about how the company's digital health and therapeutic solutions make better health easy for people managing chronic conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, and a few musculoskeletal disorders as well. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Rick Anderson.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a brief look into your professional background and talk about your role there at DarioHealth.
Well, I joined Dario in January of 2020, really to lead the company through its transition. It was historically a direct-to-consumer company interested in moving its products into health plans, employers, and providers in terms of making those products more widely available in those markets. And I had spent the previous 15 years growing a company from scratch to about a $500 million market cap that was focused on the intersection of chronic diseases and behavioral health, really coming at it from the behavioral health side, and contracted with most of the large health plans in the U.S., several of the regionals, and had gone through that whole process of transitioning and making a company work in that space. And so, when I saw Dario and its ability to, really use digital tools and the AI that they had internally and the database that they had internally to really make lives better, that was very attractive. What they were trying to do really played into my experience in that marketplace. And so I joined then to transition. It's been now, a little bit more than a year, and we've moved quite a bit into that space at this point. We have several customers and, are really starting to see the fruits of that labor of it moving over. And the gratifying part really is seeing people have access to tools that they didn't have access to before.
Now, DarioHealth has digital health solutions to manage prediabetes, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and as I mentioned, some musculoskeletal issues as well. Give us a little bit of insight into this platform.
Yeah, so the platform is really a combination of a number of things. It's medical devices like blood glucose monitors, blood pressure monitors, scales, other kinds of sensors can be used within the platform as well. And then a software platform that really learns the behaviors of the individuals and allows for the AI engine to personalize the experience for each member. And we customize that across a number of different domains, tone, tenor, content, suggestion, because really the premise is behind this that if you want to help people make the right thing to do or manage their chronic conditions effectively, the easy thing to do, then what you need to do is be able to provide them value over time. And what's really important is how people change and how they're different. The intrapersonal differences or the difference of how I change over time is more important than how different I am from another person. So that, is part of what we're doing. And then on top of that, we combine humans. So what you get is biofeedback from the devices, a software and AI engine and platform that's supporting that behavior change and serving up suggestions and digitally coaching you, and then also human coaches together. And those components really is what makes up the overall solution. And the exact combination of those pieces is really driven by each individual member.
When you say coaching, is it more unique than simple tech support and training for devices or AI?
Yes, we actually have a few different types of coaches that are on the platform depending on the member needs. So we have what we call Dario partners, which are coaches that really, help people with that upfront piece, like what you're talking about. I've been using an iPhone for years, but my daughter who's 16 can take my iPhone and show me new tricks that I've never seen before on it. So it's the same sort of thing, help somebody understand the cool features, that are there in the application, and then really stay with those members, if you will, as sort of a informed health friend, somebody that can help hold you accountable if that's what you want, but is there to listen to the things that you need. And then on top of that, we have what we would call clinical coaches, which are going to be things like registered dietitians, certified diabetes educators, nurses, potentially pharmacists, sort of depending on the deployment that we're using, that can provide specific expertise.
The relationship between the healthcare provider and the patient has always been a complex relationship. How is DarioHealth dealing with that relationship between healthcare and provider, especially in the light of this pandemic?
Yeah, I think that's really a good question. And I'll take it from the terms of the pandemic, is that really what that highlighted is that when, people with diabetes and hypertension were at a greater risk for COVID, and you didn't want them in your office if you were a provider because you didn't want to increase the risk. And if you were, a patient like that, you didn't know, there was a focus on how do we provide the best possible care for these members. And, the happy sort of accident, or the silver lining, if you will, out of that was that the ability to remotely monitor these patients really improves the ability for providers to care for them. So instead of getting, point in time, once a month, once every 2 months kind of data that they would get from those members when they saw them in their office, now they're able to get continuous or near continuous data and look at that and understand really what's happening with their members. Because the reality is chronic conditions are what happen between provider visits, not at provider visits. So it really arms them with better tools to be able to manage those members, and members can share their data with providers in a number of different ways on the platform. So they can either provide access to providers through our digital platform, our web-based platform, or they can email their results, they can text the results, they can save them, they can print them out. There's a number of different ways that they can share this with their providers. Because again, really it's about what's easy for the member, how do we make this easy to give them those interactions. And I think this is the first step in the process to seeing more virtual care across a number of different continuums for different diseases, but really focusing on chronic diseases enhances care in the field.
Now, DarioHealth's musculoskeletal, that's a recent development, I do believe, with a new acquisition. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. We acquired Upright Technologies a couple of months ago, which brought us into the musculoskeletal business. They, like Dario, have a significant direct-to-consumer business, which we really like because we believe that having a consumer business is part of what helps companies develop products that really engage members. We've seen that ourselves. We saw that in Upright, and that was interesting in terms of what we're doing. And we're in the process of taking that product also into the health plan, employer, and provider space as well.
Now, what do you see next for DarioHealth as far as managing chronic conditions?
So what we really look to do in terms of conditions and pieces that we add to the platform are, pieces that make it easier for members. We're always looking for additional tools that we can add, onto the platform. But also, if you think about, what is it that really, drives costs for our customers, are critical issues for our members, and that have, high levels of interaction with conditions they otherwise have. So, for example, for diabetes, about a third of people with diabetes have musculoskeletal conditions. The other area that we have a significant interest in is behavioral health, because, especially in this time with the pandemic, we've seen, a crisis of behavioral health that is a concern of our customers. And on top of that, there's a large amount of overlap with behavioral health and chronic conditions. So that's another area that we're looking to add to the platform. And, we also are anticipating we're going to see some significant expansions this year in terms of coverage under health plans and additional providers adopting the technology.
Where can our listeners learn more online about DarioHealth?
You can find that on our website, which is www.dario.health.com.
Well, Rick, I appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Rick Anderson, President and General Manager, North America at DarioHealth. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.